Welcome to Old Coins World, PK friends. Imagine this. In my hand, I hold a coin that looks simple, just a $quarter from the United States of America, dated 1965. To most people, it is nothing more than 25 cents, a piece of everyday change. But believe me, this is not just a coin. This is the very first of a new era, a coin that changed the history of American money forever. This quarter marked the moment when the United States abandoned silver and entered a bold, modern age of coinage. Billions were made, but hidden among them are treasures worth thousands of dollars, rare errors, silver strikings, and flawless high-grade survivors that collectors around the world dream of owning. The 1965 quarter is not just money. It is a story of crisis, innovation, and hidden fortune, all pressed into a small piece of metal that still circulates today. Stay with me, because what you are about to discover will change the way you look at every single coin in your pocket.
Now,
the 1965 quarter dollar of the United States of America is one of the most fascinating coins in American numismatic history because it marks the beginning of a new era in coin production. Until 1964, quarters were made of 90% silver and 10% copper, which gave them intrinsic value and made them highly sought after even outside the United States. However, in 1965, due to a nationwide silver shortage and the increasing cost of precious metals, the U.S. Mint transitioned to a new composition for circulating quarters. The 1965 Washington quarter was therefore the very first year of issue for the clad composition, a copper-nickel layered coin that replaced the traditional silver quarter. This shift was monumental because it changed not just the quarter, but also the way Americans viewed coins. Instead of being partly bullion, the new quarters were entirely base metal, designed to be used strictly as money for commerce rather than as miniature stores of silver value. The design of the 1965 quarter continued with the portrait of George Washington on the obverse, front side. Sculpted by John Flanagan in 1932 to commemorate Washington's 200th birthday, this design had already been on the quarter for over 30 years by 1965. Washington's bust faces left, with the word Liberty above his head and the phrase, "In God We Trust," appearing on the left field. The date 1965 is found at the bottom. Interestingly, there is no mint mark on any 1965 quarter, regardless of where it was minted. This was intentional. The U.S. Mint decided to remove mint marks from all coins struck between 1965 and 1967 as a strategy to discourage coin hoarding, which had become widespread during the silver shortage. Collectors and the general public were hoarding coins with mint marks, and the mint wanted to ensure that people would keep the new clad quarters in circulation rather than pulling them out of use. On the reverse side, the 1965 quarter carries the classic heraldic eagle design, also by Flanagan. A bold eagle with outstretched wings perches on a bundle of arrows, a symbol of military preparedness, while an olive branch beneath the arrows represents peace. Above the eagle are the words United States of America, and just below that the motto, E pluribus unum, out of many one. At the bottom of the reverse, the denomination is written as quarter dollar. This design remained unchanged for decades until the launch of the 50-state quarters program in 1999. The size of the coin is standard for Washington quarters, 24.3 millimeters in diameter, weighing 5.67 grams, with a reeded, ridged edge. Its metallic composition is copper-nickel clad, meaning it consists of an inner core of pure copper bonded between two outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel. From a historical perspective, the 1965 quarter is extremely important because it represents the end of the silver era in U.S. coinage. Silver quarters dated 1964 and earlier were widely hoarded, melted, or saved, while the new clad 1965 quarters entered circulation in massive numbers. Over 1.8 billion quarters were struck in 1965, making it one of the highest mintage years for the denomination up to that point. Because of this enormous mintage, most 1965 quarters are still considered common today and millions remain in circulation, though many show heavy wear from decades of use. For collectors, this abundance means that circulated examples have little premium above face value. However, The coin becomes interesting when one considers varieties, minting errors, and high-grade specimens. There are some notable error coins from 1965 that have become famous. One of the most desirable is the 1965 silver quarter error. During the transition from silver to clad coinage, some planchets, blank discs intended for striking, from 1964 were accidentally left in the mint's machinery. As a result, a very small number of 1965 dated quarters were struck on 90% silver planchets instead of clad copper-nickel ones. These error coins are extremely rare and can be worth thousands of dollars, depending on condition. Another error type includes off-center strikes, double strikes, and broad strikes, which collectors also pay high premiums for. In terms of value, a regular 1965 clad quarter in circulated condition is still worth just 25 cents, its face value. Even in uncirculated condition, the value is modest, usually ranging from $1 to $20 depending on the quality and luster. The real jump in value comes with high-grade mint state, MS, coins, especially those graded MS, 67 or higher by professional grading services such as PCGS or NGC. In such conditions, where the coin exhibits sharp details, no significant scratches, and brilliant original surfaces, a 1965 quarter can sell for hundreds or even over $1,000. Proof-like examples are especially desirable, even though no official proof coins were struck in 1965 due to the mint's suspension of proof sets from 1965 to 1967. Instead, the mint produced special mint sets, SMS, and 1965 quarters from these sets sometimes show a cameo contrast finish, which is highly prized. To summarize, the 1965 United States quarter dollar is not just an ordinary coin but a turning point in American numismatic history. It carries the iconic Washington portrait and eagle design, but its true significance lies in being the first of the modern clad quarters, a coin born from economic necessity during the silver crisis of the 1960s. It is a coin that still circulates today, seen in pocket change, vending machines, and cash registers across the nation, silently reminding us of the dramatic monetary shifts of that era. For collectors, the 1965 quarter is both a common coin and, in rare error forms or pristine condition, a potential treasure. It is an enduring piece of American heritage, linking the nation's past reliance on precious metals with its modern approach to practical coinage. The 1965 Washington quarter dollar is not merely a small piece of change. It is a coin that symbolizes the dramatic economic and historical transition of the United States during the mid-1960s. Until 1964, all U.S. quarters were struck in 90% silver, and people trusted their coins not only as currency, but also as stores of real value because of their intrinsic silver content. However, by the early 1960s, the price of silver began to rise significantly, leading to coin shortages across the country. Citizens hoarded silver quarters and dimes, melting them down for bullion value or saving them as investments. The U.S. government realized that producing circulating coins in silver was no longer sustainable, as the metal itself was worth nearly as much as the face value of the coin. Therefore, in 1965, a revolutionary decision was made. Silver was removed from quarters and dimes, and a new composition was introduced. This new clad coinage, made of copper and nickel, was cheaper to produce and ensured that coins would remain in circulation rather than being hoarded. The 1965 quarter is historically significant as the first clad quarter ever issued in the United States. Its core is made of pure copper, while the outer layers consist of a copper-nickel alloy, 75% copper, 25% nickel. This gave the coin a different sound, color, and feel compared to the older silver quarters. In fact, even today, collectors and everyday Americans can quickly test whether a quarter is silver or clad by checking the edge of the coin. A clad quarter shows a distinct copper stripe along its edge, while a silver quarter has a pure silver color all the way through. This simple difference tells the story of a major turning point in U.S. monetary history. In terms of appearance, the 1965 quarter maintained the classic George Washington obverse design that first appeared in 1932. Designed by sculptor John Flanagan, the bust of Washington is bold and noble, representing leadership and the birth of American independence. The word liberty arches across the top, and beneath Washington's chin sits the national motto, "In God We Trust." At the bottom is the year 1965, a date that has become iconic for coin enthusiasts because it represents the very beginning of the clad era. Collectors also notice that there is no mint mark on the 1965 quarter, even though millions were produced in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. This was not a mistake, but a deliberate policy by the mint. From 1965 to 1967, all mint marks were removed in order to discourage hoarding and speculation. By removing mint marks, the mint made coins appear identical no matter where they were produced, reducing the incentive for collectors to pull specific coins out of circulation. The reverse side of the 1965 quarter continues the heraldic eagle design, also crafted by John Flanagan. A strong eagle spreads its wings proudly, clutching arrows in its talons to symbolize national defense, while an olive branch beneath represents the United States' desire for peace. Around the top edge are the words United States of America and the Latin motto, E pluribus unum, meaning out of many one. At the bottom, the denomination is boldly inscribed as quarter dollar. Together, these details gave the 1965 quarter a sense of tradition, even though its metallic heart had changed forever. The mintage of 1965 quarters was enormous, with over 1.8 billion coins struck. This massive production was intended to satisfy public demand and restore coins into circulation after years of shortages. Because of this high mintage, the coin is very common in circulated condition even today. People still find 1965 quarters in their pocket change, grocery store cash registers, and vending machines. In fact, it is one of the most frequently encountered old quarters that the average American might see, since so many remain in active use. For collectors, the real excitement lies not in the regular coins, but in the rare errors and special strikes. One of the most famous is the 1965 silver transition error. During the shift from silver to clad planchets, a few leftover silver blanks from 1964 were accidentally fed into the presses and struck with a 1965 date. These silver quarters are extremely rare and highly valuable, with some selling for thousands of dollars at auction. Additionally, certain 1965 quarters produced for special mint sets, SMS, have an unusually sharp strike and frosted cameo contrast between the design and background. These SMS quarters are highly collectible, with deep cameo examples commanding strong prices. When we talk about the value of the 1965 quarter in today's market, we must separate the ordinary from the extraordinary. A normal, circulated 1965 clad quarter is worth only its face value of 25 cents. Even uncirculated examples usually sell for just a few dollars unless they are in exceptionally high grades. However, coins graded MS 67 or MS 68 can be worth hundreds, sometimes crossing into the $1,000 range because of their rarity in such pristine condition. The real stars of the market are the error coins, especially the 1965 quarters struck on silver planchets. Depending on condition, these can fetch anywhere from $3,000 to over $10,000. Cameo and deep cameo SMS examples are also valuable, ranging from $100 to several $1,000s. In conclusion, the 1965 United States quarter dollar is a coin of immense historical importance, not because it is rare in itself, but because it represents the turning point when the nation moved away from silver coinage into the modern clad era. It remains a common coin in circulation, a familiar sight for millions of Americans, yet hidden among them could be extraordinary treasures, rare errors, high-grade survivors, and silver strikings that turn an ordinary quarter into a numismatic jewel. For collectors, historians, and even casual enthusiasts, the 1965 quarter serves as a reminder that sometimes, even the most ordinary-looking coin can carry a story of national change and hidden value. Welcome to Old Coins World, PK friends. Today I will show you a coin that may look small, but it carries power, history, and hidden value that can shock the world. In my hands lies the 1987 quarter dollar of the United States of America, a coin that millions of people spent in everyday life without ever realizing its true importance. To many, it was just 25 cents, but for collectors and historians, it is a symbol of strength, beauty, and national pride. Some pieces of this very coin, if preserved in flawless condition or struck with rare minting errors, can turn from ordinary change into treasures worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. This is not just a quarter. It is a silent witness of American history, a coin that connects George Washington's timeless legacy to the life of every citizen who once held it. Stay with me, because what I am about to reveal about the 1987 quarter dollar will leave you amazed, inspired, and perhaps even searching your own pockets for this extraordinary piece of history now. The 1987 quarter dollar of the United States of America is one of the modern, yet still collectible coins in American numismatic history. Belonging to the Washington Quarter series, which began in 1932 to honor the bicentennial of George Washington's birth, the 1987 quarter carries with it both historical and practical importance. The obverse of the coin features the portrait of George Washington, the nation's first president, designed by John Flanagan. His profile faces left, with the word Liberty boldly inscribed above his head, the year of mintage, 1987 below, and the motto, "In God We Trust," positioned neatly to the left. Depending on the mint of origin, you may find a mint mark, P for Philadelphia, D for Denver, or S for San Francisco, placed just behind Washington's ponytail, giving us a clue to where exactly the coin was struck. This small mint mark may seem like a minor detail, but in a world of coin collectors, it can significantly influence the rarity and value of the coin. On the reverse side, the design continues to follow the traditional Washington quarter imagery that had been used for decades before the arrival of the 50-state quarters program in 1999. The reverse showcases a majestic heraldic eagle with wings spread wide, clutching a bundle of arrows in its talons, symbolizing America's strength and readiness to defend itself. Below the eagle lies an olive branch, signifying peace. Surrounding the design are inscriptions including United States of America at the top, E pluribus unum, out of many one, above the eagle's head, and the denomination quarter dollar boldly displayed at the bottom. This classical design of the eagle had been in place since the series began and was admired for its balance of strength and dignity. In terms of composition, the 1987 Washington quarter is a clad coin, meaning it was made from a mix of copper and nickel. Specifically, it has an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel, bonded to an inner core of pure copper. This composition gives the coin its characteristic silvery color and durability. It weighs 5.67 grams, has a diameter of 24.3 millimeters, and a thickness of about 1.75 millimeters, with a reeded edge made up of 119 tiny ridges. This technical design was not only aesthetically pleasing but also practical, as reeded edges historically helped to prevent the illegal shaving or clipping of precious metal coins back when they were made of silver. Though by 1987 quarters no longer contained silver, the tradition of the reeded edge continued as part of the design. The minting figures of the 1987 quarter are also fascinating to explore. The Philadelphia Mint struck approximately 562 million quarters with the P mint mark, while the Denver Mint produced around 655 million quarters with the D mint mark. These numbers show that the 1987 quarter was minted in enormous quantities, which explains why most circulated examples are still very common today and can often be found in pocket change. However, the San Francisco Mint created special proof coins, about 4.2 million pieces, intended for collectors. These proof coins were struck using specially polished dies and planchets, resulting in sharp details and a mirror-like surface that is highly prized by numismatists. Such coins were never meant for circulation and were sold directly in sets to collectors. In terms of historical significance, the 1987 quarter occupies an interesting place. It belongs to the period just before the massive transformation of American coinage that came with the 50-state quarters program beginning in 1999. Therefore, the 1987 quarter still reflects the classic Washington quarter design that had been used continuously since 1932, making it one of the later issues in the long-running traditional eagleback style. For collectors today, coins from the 1980s can represent a nostalgic era of American coinage, when designs were still consistent and familiar to generations of Americans who grew up using them. Now, regarding value, most 1987 quarters found in circulation are only worth their face value of 25 cents since they were minted in such high quantities. However, uncirculated examples, those that have never been used in commerce and still retain their original mint luster, can carry a premium. For instance, quarters graded as mint state, MS-65, by professional coin grading services may be worth a few dollars each, while near-perfect coins graded at the highest levels like MS-67 or MS-68 can fetch significantly more among collectors. Proof coins from San Francisco, especially those preserved in pristine condition with deep cameo contrast, are also desirable and may be valued at several dollars to tens of dollars depending on condition and demand. Additionally, certain error coins, such as those with missed strikes, off-center strikes, double dies, or missing clad layers, can command much higher prices, sometimes ranging into hundreds of dollars, as such errors are rare and highly collectible. Culturally, the 1987 quarter is also a reminder of how coins serve not just as currency, but as miniature works of art and history. The Washington portrait connects Americans to their founding president, while the eagle on the reverse symbolizes the enduring values of liberty, strength, and unity. Even though billions were minted, each coin still carries a piece of national identity and history in its small metallic form. Collectors often emphasize that even the most common coins deserve appreciation, as they represent the craft, design, and symbolism chosen by the nation. In conclusion, the 1987 quarter dollar with mint mark is a coin that combines history, symbolism, and collectible interest. Though it is a modern-clad coin without intrinsic precious metal value, it still holds importance in numismatic study and collection. Its massive mintage numbers make it easy to obtain, but for those who seek quality, rare errors, or proof strikes, it can also present opportunities for higher value and rarity. This quarter remains an accessible yet meaningful piece of American coinage, linking the everyday commerce of 1987 to the broader story of U.S. history and design. Beyond the basic history and specifications of the 1987 quarter, collectors often look deeper into the subtle details that make each coin unique. For example, the strike quality of quarters produced in the Denver Mint versus those in Philadelphia sometimes differs, with Denver coins often showing slightly sharper details due to minting practices at the time. Careful collectors will notice differences in how Washington's hairlines appear, the sharpness of the eagle's feathers on the reverse, or even the crispness of the reeded edge. These small differences might seem insignificant to a casual observer, but to numismatists, they represent the artistry and precision of coin production and can influence desirability and value in higher grades. Another fascinating aspect of the 1987 quarter lies in its role in circulation. By this time, quarters had become one of the most widely used coins in American commerce, essential for vending machines, laundromats, toll booths, and payphones. This constant use meant that quarters experienced heavy wear and tear, and as a result, finding well-preserved, uncirculated 1987 quarters today is less common than the enormous mintage numbers might suggest. Millions of these coins were used daily and eventually worn down, which makes pristine, mint-state examples far more appealing to collectors than their circulated counterparts. The proof versions produced at the San Francisco Mint deserve special mention. Proof coins are created using polished dies and specially treated blanks, resulting in two distinct finishes: a frosted design that contrasts with a mirror-like background. This technique creates a stunning visual effect known as cameo or deep cameo, which collectors highly prize. A proof 1987 S quarter with perfect deep cameo contrast, housed in its original U.S. mint packaging, stands as both a collector's item and a reminder of the mint's craftsmanship. Although millions were made, not all have survived in perfect condition, so those that remain pristine hold extra value. When discussing value, it's also important to highlight the error coins of 1987. Errors such as double die obverse, where inscriptions or parts of the design appear doubled, off-center strikes, where the design is not correctly aligned, or missing clad layers, exposing the reddish copper core, can elevate a common 25-cent piece into something worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on rarity and demand. For example, a 1987 quarter missing part of its nickel layer, showing a coppery surface on one side, is considered highly collectible because such errors are seldom released into circulation. Error collecting is a specialized field, and coins like this often spark bidding wars among enthusiasts. From a historical perspective, the 1987 quarter also reflects the broader context of the U.S. economy and culture during the late 1980s. It was the era of expanding technology, the rise of global markets, and a time when American currency continued to play a central role in global trade. Even though the quarter itself was just a small coin, it was an everyday tool of commerce that touched nearly every American household. Think of the millions of hands these coins passed through, school children using them for lunch money, drivers dropping them into toll booths, or families saving them in jars at home. Each coin carried with it countless stories of ordinary life in 1987. Furthermore, the design stability of the 1987 quarter is part of its charm. For decades, Americans had seen the same portrait of Washington and the same heraldic eagle on the back, making it instantly recognizable. This stability created a sense of trust and familiarity in U.S. coinage. At the same time, collectors today look back on coins like the 1987 issue with nostalgia, as they represent the final era before the major design revolution of the late 1990s. Coins such as this one symbolize continuity, consistency, and the unchanging identity of America's coinage at the time. For investors and collectors, the 1987 quarter is not a coin that will make someone rich overnight in ordinary conditions. However, its value lies in its role as a teaching tool and as part of a larger collection. A complete set of Washington quarters, including all mint marks and proof issues, would not be complete without the 1987 coin. For young collectors, it serves as an accessible starting point, affordable yet meaningful. For experienced numismatists, it provides an essential piece in the broader puzzle of American coinage history. Finally, one cannot ignore the symbolism of George Washington himself on the obverse. His image on the quarter is more than just a portrait. It is a national emblem of leadership, independence, and resilience. Paired with the eagle on the reverse, the coin stands as a miniature monument to American ideals. Even though billions were minted, each 1987 quarter represents a physical connection between the nation's founding principles and the everyday lives of its citizens. That is the beauty of coin collecting, recognizing that even the most common pieces hold extraordinary meaning when we take the time to study them.